welcome to this special edition of Spindle City Straight Talk, the Casino Special. Today, we are going to be speaking about the quote-unquote public hearing on the casino in Fall River. We want you to listen very clearly, and we're going to place some pros and cons here on everything. And we're going to try to present this to you as factually as possible. So please pay attention, because this is important. We had a very interesting meeting last night, if you want to call it that. I called it the Dog and Pony Show. The Dog and Pony Show to the point that by the time I was so fed up with it and I left, one of the people standing at the door, I said, "What a great Dog and Pony Show." And they said, "Yeah, so be careful. There's a lot of bull all over the place." So it was very interesting. The meeting allowed CEO and president of Foxwoods, Scott Butera, to make a presentation, which was a really nice presentation. And he took a couple of choice-picked questions from the audience before he had to leave for an important event he had to attend. My question to Mr. Butera, which could not go answered, was who in their right mind would schedule an event on the same day that you have a public hearing of people who want to ask questions of the casino president? Instead, Mr. Butera left a gentleman who represented the architectural firm who's going to design the casino. Because, by the way, another misrepresentation was the fact that the pictures presented of what the casino may look like are the exact same pictures, drawings, and sketches that were presented to Milford when Milford denied their casino. They couldn't even spend an extra dime to do some planning. I mean, Chipper, is this just getting better and better? Because there's a lot more information to come.
Well, there certainly is. This is probably the most important thing that Fall River has seen in decades, and maybe in its history. You know, this casino could be the beginning of the turnaround of Fall River if the people want it. However, even people who are proponents of the casino want answers so they can make a valid decision when they vote on the casino. The reality is that yesterday's hearing was a orchestrated scenario. Specific questions were asked. You know, it's not uncommon for politicians to kind of chum the water with plants with prearranged questions that they have really good answers to make everything sound good. But the fact is that this is an issue that needs full disclosure. That meeting should have been held in an auditorium, be it Durfee, be it Bristol Community College, where we could put as many people as possible in the room and give those people as much time as possible to have all their questions answered. And I don't mean having a dialogue for pro and pro casino and anti-casino people. This to me should have been a meeting that examined exactly what we were looking at, exactly what kind of casino it is in its entirety, also the agreement, which is more important than anything else, because the fact is, you know, I've gone on record as being pro-casino. I think that the value outweighs the negatives. But the fact is, I'm not pro-casino if I don't see the agreement and know that Fall River is going to maximize its benefit from the casino. I don't want to see a situation like Atlantic City where most of the money is taken by politicians and used elsewhere and just basically pissed in a hole. And we can't do that. The most important part of this is getting full disclosure on what we're going to have, what we're going to buy, what we're going to get out of this, and have it, as the mayor said, to quote the mayor, carved in stone, just as the location was. The reality is, it's not going to do any good if we get $18 million in host fees if we don't utilize that for the benefit of the city and the citizens. I will remind you out there that at one time we had an $11 million surplus from the host fees at the landfill. We're broke. What happened to that $11 million? So the reality is, what good is a casino going to do if we take the money we get it from and allow these people who have been misspending and just completely going crazy? It's not going to do us any good if the mayor takes that money and gives everybody a pay raise, and in 2 years, we're going to need tax increases again. These are the kind of questions that have to be answered, and then the proponents and opponents can weigh in, try to get their side heard by the public, and the voters can decide. But before the voter, you and I, the taxpayers of this city, can make a decision. We need full disclosure, and we need to have a meeting, and if it takes 2 days of meetings or 3 days of meetings, that's what it has to be. Otherwise, this is another exercise in futility.
I agree with you. And the interesting part about the whole thing is a lot of what's already been promised to Fall River has already been reneged on. If you remember correctly, Foxwoods had agreed with Fall River to provide a $750 million casino. Last night, that was dropped to $500 million. My question is, why? Well, guess what? We couldn't ask that question because the CEO of Foxwoods had to leave. And by the way, to give you a little bit of full disclosure on this, I stepped out of the meeting, out the side door, and walked around the government center building. They took the CEO of Foxwoods out the back of the city council chamber building, which leads out onto the South Main Street side, and then walked him around the building, down the side steps in front of the post office to his vehicle. And it was only one person. It was the chief of staff. I was out there to ask the question. And as the press, I'm entitled to. But the chief of staff acted like a pit bull and decided to run, block over here for the CEO to get in his vehicle and leave right away. As a matter of fact, he radioed or called his chauffeur and said, "Get the car ready, I need to leave now," when he was up at the top of the stairs at the government center. So I couldn't ask questions like, is this going to be done in phases, which is important to know, because if the casino is done in phases, they'll do the first phase and stop until they make a profit and see if it's worth expanding. Another mistruth or change of story is the fact that the city has said, and this is on the city side, that all they bought was the Harbor Mall building, and I'm quoting, I shouldn't say bought, all they obtained was the Harbor Mall building and the Staples and Dollar Tree stores. Got a problem with that. Foxwoods to date has not purchased anything. Let's make that perfectly clear. They have not bought anything, and that's why they never use the term bought or purchased in the entire presentation. All they've done is what's called optioning. What they do is they come to an agreement with a property owner and they say, I'm going to purchase your property on December 1st, for instance, if everything goes according to plan. I'm going to give you $5,000 or $10,000 to secure that option. That restricts the property owner from selling to anyone else, and it gives a surety of $10,000 or $5,000 or whatever the optioning fee was to the property owner, that if the purchaser doesn't buy the property by December 1st, for instance, then they keep the money and they can put the building or the property back on the market. But the Office of Economic Development showed that while the Harbor Mall building and the Staples building, which I'll call it Staples building, although I want to call it the Stop and Shop building, are optioned by color coding the map. The color coding also exceeds beyond the entire property line, and then they have a purple section or a pink section across the avenue, which is going to be zoned for future expansion. This is an unconfirmed rumor, unconfirmed story, that the properties on the other side of the avenue have already been optioned. These have come from several reliable sources in regards to those buildings and properties, but they have already been optioned supposedly. Again, this is an unconfirmed rumor, but as we've learned in history with the city of Fall River, we have a shadow government which has shadow stories, and most of them are true. So the question then becomes, we're only going to spend $500 million on building a casino if everything goes according to plan. And we might even expand on the other side because they have to. Because one thing that's not included in the plan they showed is where are they going to park? I guess parking isn't necessary for a casino that handles 40,000 vehicles a day. 40,000. Where are they going to park those vehicles? Chip, do you have a spare parking garage around anywhere?
Well, I have visited Foxwoods on many occasions, and they probably have parking lots the size of the property that they say they have purchased. So a lot of these things don't really ring true. And as I said, full disclosure is an absolute necessity, because I will tell you, unless the conditions are right, I will vote no on the casino, because the fact is that I want to see a casino that we can maximize the benefit to the city of Fall River and its people. I don't want another carousel, or I don't want another HMS Bounty. I don't want another disaster of epic proportions when we're talking about a casino. Because the fact is, if we're not going to get the jobs, the right amount of money, and have that money earmarked for the right things, it's not a good idea. The fact is that the casino does bring with it certain things. Obviously, you're going to hear, well, it brings in crime. Well, yeah, that's true, but the problem is statistics can be used and manipulated to couch an argument. That's true, but if you look at crime statistics, wherever there's money, there's higher crime, because criminals don't break into houses in the ghettos because they don't have anything. They'll go to the more affluent neighborhoods and break into houses. So obviously, with a casino and people with money, there's going to be there may be a spike. There may be a little bit more crime, but the fact is, within the casino proper areas, they're normally fairly safe. They're very judicious about making sure that the environment is safe for the people. We'll hear a lot of arguments about the pros and cons, but the reality is that we have to deal with what's good and what's bad. And if you take away all the good that it can do by, number one, not entering into an agreement that's beneficial to the public, and obviously, I have a very difficult time resigning to the fact that Ken Fiola and Liz Pereira are capable of drafting an agreement that's beneficial to the city and will maximize our ability, because the fact is, anytime, number one, I don't think Mr. Fiola has ever tried a case in court. Secondly, his track record for 20 plus years in the redevelopment authority has just been stamped again with the highest unemployment rate in the state. And Liz Pereira basically has farmed out every case that's beyond the kindergarten level to people in Boston, yet the biggest financial thing that we're looking at in Fall River, and it's probably in its history, $750 million. We're going to entrust the specifics of that agreement and how that money is used and what the conditions of is to these two is, to me, ludicrous.
Well, and let's look at that. Ken Fiola is an attorney, okay? So that's not an issue. But Ken Fiola doesn't work for the city. Therefore, that means that Ken Fiola is going to be able to bill the city $400 an hour or more, whatever he sees fit to charge, to develop an agreement he's never even looked upon or worked with. So I like you have a serious problem with that. City Councilor Pereira wanted to hire an outside attorney who has specific experience with writing these type of agreements. But again, somebody who has some judicious fortitude and a backbone is brushed off to the side, to the point that she didn't even have a seat yesterday with the other city councilors. She sat on a trash barrel and listened to this hearing, which I thought was the biggest slap in the face that could be given. But let's look at what some of the people out in our community are saying are pro for Fall River. They're going to bring between 3,000 and 5,000 jobs. Ken Fiola says we're going to demand 55% of those jobs go to the people of Fall River. That's approximately 2,000 jobs. Now, if you're looking at that, and that's at the low end, and if you're looking at that, Now look at what the application process is like to get a job at a casino. First and foremost, you got to have a high school diploma. Okay? Although the casino did say there are some jobs for people without high school diplomas. But for the most part, to get a job at a casino, you have to have a high school diploma. You have to have an impeccably clean criminal background check. I mean impeccably clean. They not only look at convictions, they look at arrests and what they're about. You can be arrested for anything off the street, and it gets dismissed because there was no case. But that arrest is going to be seen by Foxwoods and the security people. They won't hire you. You have to be drug-free. Random drug tests. So, I mean, with those 3 items, you've just excluded a huge chunk of the unemployed population of Fall River. And if they can't meet the 55% requirement, say they consent to that, and they've done that, then what happens? They go out of the city. And remember, Foxwoods currently has over 1,500 employees on layoff. And they're all trained. And they've already been security vetted, everything else. So don't you think they would offer them jobs to get them off the unemployment rolls so it saves them some money in taxes? So it's a bit of a different situation here. And we know we have a problem with crime. And the people who have been arrested for foolishness like shoplifting and, non-violent crimes, but theft nonetheless, yeah, Foxwoods is going to hire them tomorrow because they're going to be around all kinds of money. We want to lose our shirts, don't we? I mean, what's your opinion of this 55% hiring and what they're going to give the city?
Well, I agree. 55% is, if they will negotiate that is a great, that's a great percentage, obviously, because, as you said, they have people who are already trained, who have been laid off, and they're going to bring these people back in the higher-end jobs or the jobs that require specialized skills, such as dealers and stuff. But you're right, CJ. The fact is, in this community, we have a lot of social issues. We have a lot of issues about people with drug addiction. We know where we stood for heroin use. We have people with drug histories. We have people with criminal histories. And the reality is, a casino is probably the most judicious kind of business about looking at their money. You can't go anywhere in a gambling casino without being in the eye in the sky. They count the money 100 times. They watch the money. They're not going to hire anybody who's ever stolen anything or has a criminal history. So is 55% doable? I'm not really that sure if it's doable. But granted, if we can hire everybody in Fall River, or most of the people in Fall River who don't have a job and who can meet the standards, but therein lies the rub. There's the catch-22. The catch-22 is that, can we get that many people employed? Because if we look at the workforce that's unemployed, many of them are not going to qualify. A lot of people don't realize this. They think casino jobs are, they're fairly easy to get. They don't require that much, you can get on-the-job training and stuff like that. But as you said, and it is an accurate assessment, a gambling casino has one of the most difficult vetting processes of any industry, because you're around millions of dollars. You are around, and plus the fact that there are, even when it gets to parking attendants and stuff, I mean, they've got to ensure that when somebody parks your car, that they don't rifle through your car. It is a very, very, very exhaustive vetting process, and just that process alone eliminates a lot of people in every community, let alone Fall River with its history of, number one, having a fairly low educational level, and also with a lot of people with criminal histories and with drug problems. And, as I said, these are the kind of things that people have to be made aware of. I mean, it's nice to paint a great picture. This is the cure to everything. We're going to have zero unemployment, as the mayor said, which is kind of, it's almost comical. to say that. Like this is the answer to everything. A casino isn't the answer to everything. It's just another industry. And we have to look at it for what it is. It has positives and negatives. If we had a cigarette factory that wanted to come to Fall River, we're going to have the people who are against cigarettes, which I am one of them. Both my parents died of lung cancer. And the fact is that I don't think cigarettes should be sold, but they're legal. And the fact is, if you want to buy them and you're of age, you can. Just as gambling. Is it legal? Yes. The voters will decide if they want it in this particular community. But in order to do this, we need 100% of the information that's available to make a decision.
I agree, and it's good that you brought up this legal issue because gambling legality in Massachusetts may be at question. A group of people who were against casino gaming got a petition to have casino gaming removed from the books in Massachusetts. And they presented it, and they were fought on putting it on the ballot, saying that this was put on the ballot, and the law became law because it was put on the ballot. Well, guess what? The Supreme Judicial Court ruled that this item can be put on the November ballot. Uh-oh. Rub into the process, which means if it is indeed going to go on the November ballot as a referendum question, a binding referendum question, the Gaming Commission is going to put the brakes on issuing a casino license. They have no choice because if they issue a casino license in November prior to the vote and the vote goes through, because the construction hasn't begun, the grandfather clause won't kick in, therefore the license is null and void. So Foxwoods could go after the city for all the money they've invested on doing this. Whereas if they hold off on the license and it goes through and they say no to casino gambling in Massachusetts, guess what? Everyone's out of luck. And this is what we mean by don't put all your eggs in one basket, because we never know what's going to happen. The other thing is the president issued an executive order saying to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, you must expedite these claims. You must expedite these requests. And the Bureau of Indian Affairs recognition of a tribe has changed how they look at that now. If the Bureau of Indian Affairs recognize treaties between other tribes, between two tribes, that is recognition of the tribe prior to the 1934 date. Therefore, the Supreme Court's ruling wouldn't apply. And guess what? The Wampanoags have some. The Mashpee Indians have recognized treaties with other tribes. Therefore, they were recognized before 1934. Therefore, the Bureau of Indian Affairs did recognize them. And with the executive order saying that these requests must be expedited, I'm quite sure that the Bureau of Indian Affairs will probably, before the end of the year, take the land into trust. Again, another monkey wrench, because the Gambling Commission, the Commission on Gaming, has already said that there is one tribal license for the Commonwealth. And they designated that license for Section C. Guess where we are? Region C. Amazing, isn't it? Therefore, doesn't matter what Foxwoods does, if all the tables line up and all the chairs go in place, Taunton could get that casino. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying the way it's looking, the arrow's pointing towards Taunton. So we have a couple of big questions to ask. But I think the bigger questions are, the host agreements, because Emeril Gaudette, the only thing I learned from his presentation is that he's part Native American. Big news. I didn't know that. Thank you for letting me know. But his only concern was to have Maplewood Park adopted by Foxwoods to be taken care of by them on their dime. Isn't it amazing how all of a sudden the people come out and they start asking for what am I going to get out of this deal? And we knew that from the city on the get-go. They were doing this on, what are we going to get on this deal? But it's now traveling throughout the neighborhoods. We have to stop looking at it that way. We are not my neighborhood against your neighborhood. We are a community, and we have to address things as a community. What do you think about that one, Chipper? Emerald Gaudette, he's a Native American. I think we need to take an ad out.
Well, well, I guess he should have opened his own casino then.
Really? He should
since
have.
he has some blood in there. But the fact is, there's another point here, as you said. The Taunton Tribal Casino is a true tribal casino. We talked about full disclosure and being perfectly accurate for the people of Fall River, and I took exception to the fact that they continue to use the word Foxwood all the time, even though they said it was a commercial casino. The fact is that I think they should call it what it is, Foxwoods / to make it clear to the public, because it's a pretty, it's not difficult to see what they're trying to do. They're trying to mislead the people and basically say, look, this is a Foxwood operation, predominantly, and it's basically reinforcing this idea. But it's not full disclosure. This is an old trick. We only talk about the good things. And as CJ said, this is a community. This is a city. This obviously will impact the south end of the city more than any other part of the city. But the fact is, what we get from this casino, whether it's positive or negative, will affect this entire community. And that's what we should be looking at, to maximize what we can do. And we should be working together to make sure that this benefits, if we vote for this. And let's say, for the sake of argument, we do vote to have this casino. That agreement must benefit the people and be earmarked for the use of the people, not for politicians to have another slush fund to deal with. It's about the people of Fall River.
I agree. And we've had a lot of deception and a lot of misrepresentation by this administration, and it's time. And I think one of the things that another big question that our seniors have been asking actually is, well, I'll be able to go to Foxwoods in Fall River and I won't have to take a bus there for hours. But they didn't realize that you go to Foxwoods in Fall River, you don't get the perks. You don't get the free bets. You don't get the free buffet. You don't get any of that. Those perks are limited to group ventures, okay? When group excursions come in on a bus, all those people are given those tickets because they're coming in with a whole bunch of people and they benefit them. When you show up as Ma and Pa Kettle, just walking through the door, you got to pay for everything. This has been an interesting show, and we never have enough time to do them. But I'll tell you, you need to be fully informed and make sure you know what's happening. Chipper and I do a lot of work, and we look at a lot of these things, and I'm trying to get a hold of Scott Butera before the show and after the show today, because we want information. We want to know what is going to happen. Don't you? Don't walk into that ballot box and say, yes, 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 because it's going to give us jobs, it's going to give us, you don't know what it's going to give us. Make sure you find out. Chip, what do you think? It's time.
Absolutely. Demand answers, demand real public hearings, public meetings where we can ask the questions that need to be asked. So when you walk into that voting booth, if it gets to that thing, you will be making an informed decision. You will not be voting on hype and publicity. So remember, this is not about one neighborhood. This is not about one little factor. This is about Fall River.
Thank you for watching our special episode, and we look forward to seeing you at our regular episode next week. Thank you.